Connected. Together we change the world. Thank you everyone for welcoming me here today. My adventure to the Amazon last August was an exciting journey for me personally, and I hope my words and photos will share some of that with you. As many of you know, I am passionate about the environment. Last winter we were exploring environment degrees and camp programs. We came across MeetAWe on the web and saw that they offered a trip to the Amazon. Unbelievably, within a few weeks, I was signed up and I realized that this was actually happening. This was where I was going. But to give you a bit of background, what is MeetAWe and what is Free the Children? Free the Children is a non-profit organization that works in developing countries to help poverty-stricken communities lift themselves out of poverty and become self-sustaining. Free the Children was created by Canadian Craig Kielburger when he was only 12 years old. He was inspired to help after reading a newspaper article about a young boy his age in Pakistan who had been a child laborer, escaped that life, and then was shot for standing up for human rights. 12-year-old Craig was shocked by this story, and it made him want to help. He believed that if everyone had had more education, maybe this never would have happened. Together with his friends, Craig raised money to try and help children in need. As he grew older, Craig and his brother Mark became known around the world for the work they were doing to help children. But they also came to realize that there is no single solution to end poverty, and Craig and Mark created Adopt a Village, a new approach to development projects. The approach is what they call the 5 pillars, and it is implemented in the communities where Free the Children works. Those pillars are what they consider to be the most important things a community needs to provide and take care of themselves. These 5 things are education, clean water and sanitation, healthcare, agriculture and food security, and alternative sources of income and livelihood. MeetAWe is the partner to Free the Children and is a company with a social mission. It exists to turn a profit in order to provide a long-term, predictable source of funding to Free the Children. MeetAWe does this through trips like mine, and also by producing and selling products that make an impact. That picture on the far right at the bottom was taken at one of the villages. So they make all of those bracelets and jewelry to sell to help make alternative sources of income. All of this provides the background for my own trip and why your donations and support meant so much to me. Let me take you along my journey. On my trip, I was with a group of 16 youth from across Canada and the US. We flew from Toronto to San Salvador and then on to Quito in the mountains of Ecuador. Quito itself was exciting as it's situated right on the equator. On our first day, we went to the equator and its museum. We were standing right in the center of the world. We did some experiments that can only be done there. With a sink and some water, we learned that when standing on one side of the world, the water rotates down the drain one way, and on the other side, it rotates the other. Standing right on the equator, the water goes straight down the drain. The gravity was different too, so even balancing was a challenge. After our one day in Quito, we traveled from the Andes Mountains on a bus for 8 hours, descending to the Amazon River. We reached the Napo River and boarded a boat which carried us to the place that would become our home for the next 2 weeks. The place we stayed at was called the Minga Lodge. The word Minga means teamwork. Communities focus largely on that, and it is very important. More on that in a moment. The lodge kind of reminded me of a campground because we slept in bunks in rooms with about 4 other people, and our main eating areas were on large decks around the lodge. The eating areas were beautiful. One in particular, called Mikunawasi, was a favorite as it looked out onto the Amazon River. One of the main goals on our trip was to support one of the Free the Children communities in the Amazon. Our community was called Kanamu, and we were there to help build a school. Every day, we took a 20-minute boat ride and a 40-minute bus ride to reach the village. We were very lucky, as we were pretty much the first MeetAWe group to go there. We met many people, including children, who made a real impact on me. My friend Sierra and I were the first to meet Joy Ver, a 12-year-old boy in Kanamu. We met him while he was sitting on the bench of a concrete stadium that we were working in. We poorly attempted to speak Spanish to him, but even with the language issue, from then on we were friends. We also met his brother Danilo, cousin Stephen, and his little sister Dalila, who we adored. It was amazing to be introduced to these children who had seen so few strangers outside their world. In fact, I was probably one of the first Asian people that they had ever met, and because of that, they started calling me China, which is how they pronounce China. So, we worked in Kanamu almost every day on the new school. Our job was to build the foundation. It was hard, hot work, especially as everything was done with manual tools. One day we spent hours leveling the ground by banging the earth with a tool made with 2 sticks attached to a block of wood. But it was so satisfying to see the progress. And the work doesn't end where we left. After one Midui group leaves, another arrives to continue the work. It was amazing how much the community members helped with the build, including the children. This community involvement is a key part of the Adopt a Village model. Free the Children provides the resources and funds to help build the schools or medical clinics or dig wells, but it is they who take on the responsibility of providing their time and labor. And everyone gladly takes part in it, working long hours and sometimes coming from far away to work daily on the community project. That impressed me a lot. Also amazing was that even the children were stronger than us, but they were only half our size. Many of the younger ones had large stomachs, which some people mistake as being well-fed. This, in fact, is a result of parasites, and the parasites expand and eat all the food, leaving the children malnourished. But despite their struggles, the people there are amazing. They know how to climb trees, are incredibly fast, travel hours alone by foot or boat to get to school, and some of the strongest and nicest people I've ever met. Back at Minga Lodge, every night we took part in sessions called modules, where we would do learning activities that put us in the shoes of the people we were working with. One exercise had us calculate the average salary of a family of 4 for a day, and our family's total was less than $1. We then were given that amount of money and were taken to spend it on food at the local market. It was eye-opening, especially when we think about how much that we have here at home. We also learned a little bit of Spanish during those times, which I wasn't very good at, but I did try some other things from their culture, such as learning how to use a blow dart. I was the only one who hit the target. Yep. Also, eating cooked beetle larvae, which is the one on the left, and being blessed by the local shaman, which is the one down there. And we had a lot of fun. We went on 2 hikes into the rainforest, one during the day and one at night. The one at night was way cooler, in my opinion. 95% of life in the Amazon happens at night. I held a baby snake that apparently could let off an odor similar to a skunk if frightened, and a gigantic spider. We saw many blue poison dart frogs, the second most poisonous animal on Earth. The night hike was incredibly muddy and dark. I would have been completely not lost if not for Henry, our jungle guide. Henry is the one on the right there, looking up. We became close with all of our guides, our bus driver O'Hare, boat driver Pablo, and Henry. They were kind, helpful, and funny. We went on many day excursions as well, including a trip to Cacao Farm. I was amazed to find that everything was grown organically. We also made chocolate from the cacao beans that we got from the Cacao Farm. They call cocoa cacao because to them, cocoa means coconut. We bought the world's best chocolate, which won the world's chocolate competition and was made right in Ecuador. But back to the people. I haven't shown many pictures of the children because we weren't allowed to take pictures in the communities for the first while, which was understandable. We were supposed to learn 3 things about them before we took a picture with anybody. We almost didn't get to take any pictures at all because there was a flood from so much rain on the last day, which is when we were supposed to take most of the pictures. The river was so high that day that logs and other large items were floating down the river, making it extremely unsafe to travel, and we couldn't take the boat to Kanamu to see our friends. Instead, we walked to the town right beside Minga and helped work on the medical center that the other group was building. I was upset that we might be leaving the Amazon without seeing our community again. Luckily, on our way back to Quito, we were able to stop at Kanamu one last time. We almost missed Joy Ver, our young friend from the first day, but luckily I spotted him right before we got back on the bus. That's him, right in the middle. We then said goodbye to him and our foreman Nixon, who we loved and who had insisted on being there when we left. It was very sad leaving them all. The people are what I still miss about the Amazon. So looking back, what do I think now? Before the trip, I was a bit nervous, but not very much, even though I was going into the whole adventure on my own. During the trip, I was just so happy to be there. It was so different. After, I was just sad to be leaving. People ask me if I've changed, but other than receiving over 100 mosquito bites, I don't really feel that I've changed. I do think that I have much more of an awareness of what the people in the Amazon go through on an everyday basis, especially since some of them are now my friends. And I'm glad I'm going into a field of work where I can hopefully return to the Amazon one day. I'm very excited to be going on another Me to We trip next summer though, even though it won't be the Amazon. I think trips like this bring you closer to God. Being in nature and away from the things so many of us take for granted, it makes you think. It does for me anyway. And maybe this is one of the reasons that caring for the environment is so important to me and what I want to do with my life. Me to We says we're not reaching a hand out, but a hand up, meaning that we are working together to provide ways for people to raise themselves from poverty, instead of only handing them money. And I guess that is one of the things about Me to We and Free the Children that I really admire. It is about a movement of people who come together for the greater good, a world where, when the call goes out, people respond, a world that's a little less about me and a lot more about we. That certainly goes out for all of you here at St. Matthew's. Thank you so much, everyone, for your tremendous support. Without you, this trip couldn't have been possible.